joined, welcome. And as the list grows, possibly you can share in the chat where you're calling from. So your name and where you're calling from, that would be great. Okay, so we have a question from Julia about the recording. And I'm going to assume it will be posted somewhere. Don't know where.
I will talk about that in a moment.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, Marze, thank you. Hello, Vince from McGill.
And
Emily. Hi, Emily. That's an Emily that I know.
Yes.
Hi, Emily. Abdullah from Turkey. Hello, welcome.
It must be late in the evening. So I think we'll get started. And I want to welcome everyone. My name is Carola Weil. I'm Dean of Continuing Studies here at McGill University in lovely, almost sunny Montreal. And I want to welcome everyone to this webinar. I am particularly honored to be here with my colleague Sonia Di Malo, and I will introduce her in a moment, but also want to thank all of you for taking time out of your days to participate in our webinar series. We just began this series recently, but expect to continue it throughout the summer and potentially longer. And so I would also encourage you, if you have topics that you would like us to address, please let us know. And for those of you who have to leave before we finish or who have to pop in and out because you're also taking care of children and pets and bosses and colleagues, we are recording this session and it will be available on our website. There is a link to webinars, and so you can reach it, you can see the recordings there, or for those of you obviously who have registered here, who are here today, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording as well. So I am really honored to introduce Sonia Di Malo today. Sonia has been with the school for a number of years, since the early mid-2000s, and is just an incredibly wonderful colleague. She has been working with us, particularly on how to work with teams. She has been teaching and facilitating collaboration and leadership development in a variety of different ways. And her focus really has been on how we can maximize the impact of teamwork and teams through trust and collaboration. And this is part of what I think she might address for us a little bit today as well. She's an award-winning performance improvement professional, author, and founder of Harvest Performance. Her background is actually in educational technology and communication studies, and but she has been working in organizational development for many years and is the recipient of awards of excellence from the International Society of Performance Improvement for outstanding instructional interventions. She has worked with companies all over the world and with community organizations. She and I actually spent some time also just recently up in Nunavik in northern Quebec, working with our Inuit colleagues and partners. And so it's really been focused on how do we deliver best solutions in diverse communities, diverse workplaces that are meaningful, sustainable, and that allow us to really improve how we connect. And in this day and age of having to deal with separation and social distancing, that becomes an even greater challenge because now we are seeing everybody in little boxes on our two-dimensional screen. I can't give you a hug. I can't shake your hands. I can't kiss your cheeks. How in the world do we create both the trust, but then how do we move forward? All of a sudden, our lives have come to a standstill. What do we do about that? And so without further ado, Sonia, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and if I can just, as a housekeeping item, we have a Q&A function in the webinar. Some of you have been using the chat, which is great for introductions, but I would encourage you, if you have a question, please post it in the Q&A function, and we will get to them as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. So welcome. So the title of this presentation is It's Time to Reinvent. So based on what Carola just mentioned, you know, in this interesting time that we are all in, what I heard this week from someone is, let's not waste a good crisis, right? So what are we going to do in this period that will help us stay grounded in today, but also plan for the future? And that's a little bit about what I want to share with you in this 90-minute webinar. It's time to reinvent, discover and plan your living legacy. So to get warmed up, what I'd like for you to do in the chat is number one, make sure that where it says to, that it says all panelists and attendees, if you would like to share your answer with everybody. But what I'd like for you to do is take a moment to take a deep breath and stay grounded in this moment right now, and tell us what would be one word that you would use to describe your current state. So how are you coming into this webinar today? So one word in the chat to describe your current state. Joanna says lost, tired, Schwing is productive, reflective, interesting, good. It's good for a Friday afternoon. Vic, optimistic. Gabriella, hope. Sylvie, unbalanced. Yes, I definitely relate to that. Natalie, lost or tired. So we have two tireds. Waiting. That's a really interesting word, waiting. Uninspired from Kristen. Oh no. Vincenzo says challenging and opportunistic. Overworked. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing those words. So whether they came from a happy place or not so happy place, I think the important thing is that you were able to find that word and share that word with all of us. So sometimes even just naming that word for us helps a lot. We've got some other words coming in. Challenge the process. I like that one. Worried, enthusiastic, confusion, and confident. Okay, we've got some answers in the Q&A. So if you do want to share privately, you can share either in the chat or in the Q&A. Let's see, so we've got peaceful, anxious, hopeful for the future. So really mixed types of emotions coming in today. And thank you for sharing those. Again, it's really important to name it. Sometimes we just go along with our day. Some of you were saying, you know, overworked, you know, we're so overworked, we're trying to get stuff done, or we're just sitting here waiting, as some of you were saying, and we're not coming to understanding what our true emotions are to be able to take us to the next level. So that's a good start to our webinar today. Thank you. So I'm going to share, given that the title is It's Time to Reinvent, let's look a little bit at this definition of reinvention. What is reinvention exactly? I'm a newly certified reinvention practitioner, and I'm currently studying my reinvention coach certification. And so I'm all about reinvention right now. So I'd like for you to look at this chart. And you can see there's 5 elements on the left there, and it says, you know, and those are the elements with which we were going to identify different mindsets. The first mindset in red has, you know, 3 question marks, which is, how would you define that mindset? And then the last column is the blue mindset, which is the reinvention mindset. So it gives you a little bit of a polarity for each one of these 5 elements in terms of the reinvention mindset and possibly this other mindset. So I'm going to give you a chance to look through these and identify overall, which mindset do you currently or traditionally have you been in? And sometimes you might say, well, depends on the situation. Sometimes I'm on the red side, sometimes I'm on the blue side. And I've actually had people say, well, is there a purple option? You know, is there like some sort of middle option that I can put my hands on? So yes, so these are polarities. So of course there's maybe some granularity, but in the chat, just let me know. First question is, how would you define the red mindset? So there's question marks there for you to be able to answer. What word would you give to that kind of a mindset? Negative, dogmatic, interesting words. I'm gonna write some of these down. Rigid, restrictive, 2 rigids, interesting. Anybody else? Give you another moment to have a look and read through. Lack of agility. Static. Stressful. Closed, possibly. Cautious and stressful. Cautious is a good one, actually. Yeah. Restrictive. Nice. So that was my first question. How would you static? That's a good one too. How would you define the red side? Okay. So, oh, insecure. That's a good one. So now that you've looked at this, think about your current moment. So you came in with 1 word. How are you feeling right now? Where would you put yourself? If you had to choose, would you put yourself on the red side or the blue side? So you can say red or blue, or purple, or whatever. Where do you find yourself sitting? So Julie says purple, wink. Good, I like that. Blue, red. Okay, so some answers are coming in. Blue, red. Purple-ish. Okay. Blue. I'm definitely in the purple zone. Yes. More blue, very much blue. Okay. Good, good, good. So again, you know, sometimes as we go through these difficult moments, and you know, we're up and down, we've got these roller coasters, as Emily just mentioned, you know, in between, it's always fluctuating. So from 1 hour to another hour, we can find ourselves very much all over the place emotionally. And where our mindset is also fluctuates. The most important thing is to really identify, well, okay, where am I in this moment, or based on this situation, or regarding this item, where do I sit? And sometimes that understanding, that awareness can help us better understand ourselves and the situation to help us possibly move from red to blue. But I'm happy to see there's lots of purples and reds, and purples and blues, and a few reds. So, there's no right or wrong answer, right? Being in the red sometimes is a necessary reaction. So I want you to own wherever it is that you feel you are. Fantastic. So why are we here today? So in this next short while we have together, by the end of this 90-minute webinar, you will be able to describe the importance of having a living legacy. So we're going to talk about, first of all, what is a living legacy, and then why you should have one. You already have one, but we're going to make it a little bit more concrete. And then number 2, develop a learning plan to live your purpose. So I've got a little bit of a template as well that you can have a look at and use, of course, going forward. Following this webinar, you can use that template to help you build your living legacy. So who are you? Based on my title and my objectives and the information that you used to sign up for this webinar today, I would guess that this probably maybe defines who you are. And it might define who you are today, and it might define your aspirations as well. I'm going to bring up a poll now. This is exciting because this is my first poll ever. Pretty fun. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to launch a poll. And you're going to see this poll on your screen. And you can vote, I'm assuming. Aha, so the votes are coming in. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see the answers or if it's just me that can see the answers. Okay, only me. I'm the only one who can see the answers at this point. And so there's about 10 people that haven't voted. Okay, and so we'll see if there's a few more people who want to take a vote. And I'll just give everybody maybe 15 more seconds if you want to vote. Interesting, interesting. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to end the poll and share results. Okay, so it tells me you're viewing the poll results, which is cool. So this gives me a good idea of who you are in the room. Therefore, I can sort of tailor the information to you. So the highest participation today is that you're in a corporate function at 34%, followed by alumnus. Welcome, welcome. And tied for 13% is a current full-time student and or you're studying and working full-time. So welcome everybody. Thank you for sharing in that poll. That was fun. All right, so that's a little bit about who you are. So thank you for sharing all of that info. I am going to give you a little bit of information about who I am. So in addition to that wonderful introduction, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail. So my key focus and my key grounding in life is to help leaders and elevate them into strengths-focused, purpose-driven groundbreakers who reinvent for results and leave a positive impact on the world. So when I'm doing this, I feel like I'm very much grounded in my own purpose and in my own living legacy, which I'm going to share a little bit more about. So how did I get here? So I'll tell you a little bit about me in a very short stories that I've prepared for you. So the very first thing I want to share with you is my basketball years. So I'm not a very tall person. I'm about 5'4", 5'3.5" or so, and I got myself into playing basketball. And I really didn't know who I was or why I was playing. I was playing because, you know, I was kind of forced into it. And I played for 5 years in high school. And what's interesting is I was not a great player. So when I started playing, I was bouncing the ball with 2 hands. How I made the team, I'm not sure. But it was probably destiny. And over time, you know, I worked hard. It was something I wanted to be better at, and I had a goal to become better at playing basketball. Now, I never became great, but I was a hard worker, and my coach gave me a name, which I'm not shy to admit. So my name was Demolition, and so it's kind of an intense name that I don't really identify with, but I was almost like the secret weapon. So they'd put me on against the other player on the other team who was like one of their best players. And I would just go after her, and I would totally dismantle her mindset and her energy, and try to get at her so we could take over and win the game. So I was like the secret weapon. And what I came to understand is, wow, I have a really intense purpose on this team. That's my role. And I owned it. And I really worked hard to make sure that the team succeeded, that I fulfilled my role, and that the team succeeded as well. And everybody had their own role on the team. Another role that I had on this team was as encourager. Like, because I wasn't always on the court playing, I was on the bench quite a bit, but my role was to encourage and cheer people on and be the encourager. And so those two roles really helped define a little bit about who I am today. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me. So the other thing that defines me is my role or my experience as a university student. And when I started, when I got into my graduate work, so I have a graduate degree in educational technology, you're asked to do a letter of intent, you know. So not knowing anything about this program I was going into, I wrote this letter. And I thought, yes, this is what I want. This feels right to me. And then, of course, as I started learning, I realized, wow, that letter doesn't work anymore. You know, I thought I was going into this, but now I'm learning, I'm growing, and everything's changing. And so I thought, wow, why did they let me in? You know, it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect, but I learned that I grew into the letter, and I was able to make that letter concrete because it was abstract when I started. And all this information is going to be relevant for our presentation today. And then I was very fortunate to be able to become a university professor. So my work with the School of Continuing Studies and other university-related work allows me to work with students globally and locally. Through the work that I do, I really love to elevate students and help them succeed. And I received a few awards that have really helped me solidify that role in terms of helping emerging leaders. And my last story that I want to share with you is my Take the Leap. So the work that I'm going to share with you today, it revolves around a program that I've called Take the Leap. And it's based on my book called The Apple in the Orchard, a story about finding the courage to emerge as a leader. And that story, I'm going to share a portion of that story with you today. And based on that story, I've developed a model of growth, a framework of growth for emerging leaders, which is going to be at the heart of what we talk about today. So my history from, you know, my team-based years, my individual purpose on that team, combined with the group purpose of the team, as well as my work as a student and as a professor, leading up to my professional work and working with organizations, has led me to see the real value in being purpose-driven. And how do we do that? Like, it feels like a big thing, you know, how are we purpose-driven? How do I find my purpose? Feels like really big. And one of my key strengths is to take these big questions and create easy to use practical tools to help you get there. And that's what we're going to do today. So my next big question, right? Not a question we could probably answer in 2 or 3 words, but the big question is, who are you? And at the heart of all of this, we need to better understand ourselves. That's a lifelong mission. It's not something we do in 1 exercise or 2 or in 1 course or 2. It's something that we continually learn along the way. Who exactly are we? And all the decisions we make need to stem from the people that we are. That can get complicated sometimes because there's a lot of noise. You know, there's society telling us who we should be. There's family members or well-meaning family members and friends who are telling us who we should be. You know, we are being driven by, we need a job, so maybe I should just take a job based on what's available, as opposed to who am I and in relation to that job. So there's a lot of pressure around us to help define us. And sometimes it's hard to sort of remove all that noise to say, okay, well, who am I really? There's a lot of work involved there. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that part, but it's something that I highly recommend that you take the time to define for yourself. And I will share with you one metaphor to help you understand that role. So in the chat, please tell me, when you see this big red dot, what does it remind you of? What comes to mind? First thing that comes to mind when you see this red dot. Japan. That's been the #1 answer so far. Yes, Japan. The sun, a target, an alert, stop or a stop sign. The sun, headspace. Wow, Alexandra, tell me more about headspace. I'm curious about that one. Rubber ball, I love it. Stop, medicine ball. Okay, the goal. Joanna, I think you're onto something. Anybody else? Anybody else? Focus. Hoy, that's a good one. Tomato. I love that. Yes, it's nice. It looks like a very nice juicy tomato. So this really interesting, right, round form that happens to be red is also the emblem for TED Talks, right? So they have the big red dot, and what happens in those TED Talks is that they have their speakers stand on this red dot. And so these are speakers who what you know, if you're giving a TED Talk, I've never given one before, but from the TED Talks that you have seen, hopefully you've heard of TED Talks, look them up if you haven't. Why do you think they have a red dot? And why do they position the speaker in the red dot? Any ideas in the chat? It's visible, yes. Takes the attention. Lighting and camera angles, maybe. It's the symbol for record. I love that. As in folks are listening. Wow, these are awesome answers. I'm gonna have to get a copy of these. Placement reasons, red equals pay attention. I love it, good. I have a different theory. Focus, yes. Provide space. You know, these are really interesting. I should probably ask them. I think it's a really good question, actually. So it's probably also to keep your speakers focused for the camera angles and all this. But you know, I'd like to provide you with an alternative suggestion. So think about the speaker, right? So they've been selected to give a TED Talk because they've got something really important to say. These ideas, right? Because it's about ideas. The ideas that are being shared oftentimes are quite powerful. They make us think. And these ideas are grounded. And the speaker is also grounded. And so interesting, I have a red carpet too in my office right now. I'm right on the red carpet and I put myself in the middle. So visually, I see myself standing on this red dot, being grounded in my ideas, I have important things to do in my life, and I'm grounded. And when I feel grounded, when I do have this visual and I feel grounded, I'm better able to make decisions that are aligned to who I am, decisions that I regret less, that I'm proud of. And sometimes, you know, we're not in the center middle of this dot, but we're still probably in the circle, but maybe we're not standing grounded. Maybe we're like lying down, or maybe we're kneeling over, or you know, so we might be in the dot somewhere, but we're not always strong and grounded, and that's okay too. So there's all kinds of different ebbs and flows in our groundedness. But what I'd like for you to think about is this red dot. So think about yourself grounded and really strong in terms of who you are and how you make decisions in your life, to be able to bring consistency to your words, thoughts, and actions, and to bring peace for yourself and those around you. So this is one of our grounding concepts for today. if you do have any questions, please feel free to add them in the Q&A. So we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty. So this term, living legacy, is something that I threw together. And before we go further, I think it's important that we define it so we all understand what exactly this is. Has anybody ever heard of a living legacy? Just yes or no in the chat. Yes or no. Have you heard of these two words put together, living legacy? Some yes, some no, most no. Kristen, I know that we have worked on this already, so that's good. Susanna, yes. Looking forward to learning about it. Great. So some people yes, few people yes. Emily, yes. Great, great. So I'm going to give you some ideas of my definition and why I've coined, I'm sure I'm not the original person who put this together. Schwing, yes. So, right, so most of us have heard about the word legacy, and we've heard about that as something after death. So when you see those two words together, living legacy, it's a little confusing, right? So here's how I've defined it. It's how you experience yourself every minute, every hour of every day. So it's a living legacy. It's something that happens in me every day, and it's for me. So oftentimes legacy, we talk about it's for somebody else, for the next generation, but living legacy is for me in my present moment. It's also how other people experience you every minute of every hour of every day. So again, it could be for myself, but it could be for others in how they interact with me. And finally, as we know as the word legacy, it's the benefits that you leave behind for yourself and for others when you are not there. So this is it in a nutshell. It's something you do for yourself for the present, for yourself and others in the present and in the future. Your first thought is rarely your best thought. What does that mean? As you start writing your living legacy, don't think, okay, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to write it the first time. It's going to be wonderful. By the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you some ideas on how you're going to write it. But my hope is that you actually leave this webinar and go and write it. That would make me so happy. And then you can share it with me. You can send me an email. But don't worry about it being perfect right away. You probably want to write some stuff down, then put it away, let it simmer, and then come back to it and see where or how it fits. So we're not quite worried about wordsmithing. It's more about the idea that's the best. And I want to share my living legacy as an example, because you're probably thinking, okay, the definition's great, but I don't really have a concept of what it is. So I'll give you an example. And here we go, moving some windows around. So this living legacy I wrote in March 2019. And I wrote a one-year living legacy. So that's what I'm anticipating that you should do. You should write a one-year living legacy. So we're in May 1st today. So May 2021, that would be your focus. And I wrote in March last year, I said to myself, by March 2020, I want to help 100 people discover, create, embrace, and breathe life into their living legacies. So my living legacy is the success of other people as they write their living legacies and bring them to life. And I thought, I'm going to just come up with a number. And I was launching my program, Take the Leap, to help people do this. And I really didn't know what to expect. I just threw 100 out there and I thought, maybe I'll hit it, maybe I won't, who knows? It's a target, the red dot, my target. And March just came and went. And the running count right now is at 457. So this is the amount of people that have heard about this methodology that I'm sharing with you, as well as people who have actually written it and shared it and advanced it. And at the heart, I had about 45 people who actually participated in a research study that I did that actually helped me win an award of excellence for my program, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. And more importantly, less about the program, more importantly is the outcome of the program. So that's what's really important to me, is to help you write these living legacies and bring them to life. So here's a little, I'm going to share you just with two things that came out so that you can position yourself. The sample of people, like I said, was 42. I don't have the original, I don't have the details on what the response rate was, but it was very high. I believe it was like 76% of people who responded. And this is impact results. So this is people after they took the program, 3, 6, and 9 months following the program. And this was really important for me because, you know, I had an idea of what I wanted people to do, but in the end, really, what it did do is it brought increased clarity to the participants, followed by increased confidence, followed by increased engagement. So when I looked at these three and I thought, okay, one of the things that I do in my day job is working with students. So I said to myself, this could be something really important for students. So my original focus for the webinar today was for students, but I realized we've got a lot of different people on the line. So it's not just for students, but I thought, especially in our reality right now with the COVID-19 and the sort of the change in our educational learning and educational environment, both for students and faculty and staff and everybody, wouldn't it be great if we had increased clarity, increased confidence, and increased engagement? So these are some statistics, and then I'm going to share just one quote from somebody who responded to the survey. And she says, now that I'm clear what my legacy is, I ask myself every single day, is this aligned with my legacy? If it is, I do it. If it's not, I say no to it. It has reinforced my boundaries and has helped me focus on investing my energy into what is only aligned with my legacy. So very focused, right? I'm not sure we could all do this. Like, I have a hard time with it, so there's so many fun things to take part in. But so much focus, really inspiring. Less time wasted, increased productivity, inspiration, creativity, space for my business, increased peace and confidence, increased fulfillment and enjoyment, and a feeling of freedom and energy. Wow, right? I read this sometimes when I'm not feeling so good, and it inspires me to keep going. So I just shared a little bit about the program, and why am I sharing this with you? Because I want to encourage you to take the information from this webinar today and take it forward. I really want to see you succeed using this framework. So I want you to think for yourself. So that was impact from others, but now think about this potential methodology to your studies if you're a student, to your future impact, to your life in general. Just think about whether this is something that could help you. This is a quote that's great. So whether you like it or not, you're leaving a legacy. Every single moment of your life, every interaction you make, every email you write, every conversation you have, every project you're on, it's leaving something. Wouldn't it be great if that was strategic, right? If you strategically left something with another person that helps you in your current present moment as well as in the future. And so this quote is really important to me. Each person leaves a legacy, a single small piece of herself, which makes richer each individual life and the collective life of humanity as a whole. So I have a question coming up for you. We're talking about life of humanity as a whole. That's a lot. So I do believe that you, each individual person, is capable of having huge impact in our world, in our life, especially today, most especially today. And so if you look at this picture, This for me personifies the quote that we just saw before. So in the chat, let me know, what does this look like to you? Fundamentally, as an image, what does this look like to you? Infinity sign, yes. Interconnectedness, energy, confusion, interesting, yes. Infinity in motion. Wow, infinity in motion, I love that. Overlapping infinities, yes, kind of energy and intuition. Growth, a flight path. Intersections, decoration. It is quite beautiful to look at. A roller coaster. Cyclical, a circle of energy flow. Wow, I'm gonna have to get all these answers. This is just really loving this. Several flight paths. One leads to the others. Yes. Hoy, you happen to be like the last person that shares. I love it. So it's really cool. If you look at the big infinity, right, the one that's standing out at us, it along the path, right, as some of you have noticed, there's all kinds of little infinities right along that path. So I like to think about it as our interconnection. So if I look at the participant list right now, there's 43 of you listening. So it's almost as if this infinity, the big infinity, has all 43 of us on it. So we right now are sharing a space and we are connected in some way. And then all those other infinities, you know, could be other groups or other webinars and other participants in those webinars. So there's an interconnection of everything that's happening in real time. And you can look at this living legacy as your entire life. So that big infinity loop is your life. But it could also be a project, a relationship, and all the different people that you meet along the way. So it's very much about the interconnections of the people that we meet and how we leave ourselves, how we leave our mark or our trace for ourselves first and then for others. So time for a little reflection. So in the chat, I want you to think about legends. So we're going to transition a little bit. So living legacy, the word legacy, leads us to think about legends. So the purpose of legends is to guide, inspire, and to share truth in non-literal ways so that you continue to grow as a person. My question for you is, do you know, my dog's whining right next to me. Do you know, have you heard of a legendary story? I'm sure you have. So I want you to think about a legendary story. I hope you have a legendary story in your head. There are so many. Now I want you to think about what makes this story legendary. Does it follow a specific sequence? And then the last question, this is the question I'd like for you to put in the chat. How would you describe the living legacy of the person in the story? How would you describe it if you could describe it in one sentence? Yes, so yes, sometimes we will make them as role models. Exactly, yes. So if anybody can sort of think about this legendary story, and if you could, in a sentence or a few words, describe that legendary person's living legacy, how would you write that? How would you express that? So we've got Avik who says, embody their values. Yes, so when I see that, when I read that, embody their values, I see somebody standing right in the middle of their red dot, really strong. Legends have the courage to live their truth. Emily, that is wonderful. Again, standing in the middle of their red dot, really grounded and strong, living their truth. So to live their truth, they have to know their truth to live it. Yes. Vincenzo, Mother Teresa, her valuable contribution to the world. Yes. And we could probably be more specific, right, with what her living legacy was. Marze, making a change, right? So I want you to think about these legendary stories and what they do for you. Fatima, someone that leaves behind an awareness and impact that inspires others. Terry Fox. Yes. And Vincenzo follows up with Mother Teresa. She showed that the greatest value you can provide to society is helping others. Absolutely. A lot of humility there as well. Wonderful. So thank you for sharing those. That's great. So what's so important about what you just did there in the chat? Oh, Natalie's got one. Inspiration and give us hope to advance. Yes. What's wonderful about what you did in the chat, for those of you that shared, but if you didn't share, probably you're thinking about it, is that you thought of this person, you thought of their story, and I want to say almost instantly, you were able to reflect to all of us in just a few words, in a short sentence, their living legacy. How powerful is that? They were so true to themselves. They were standing on that dot so loudly with their thoughts, their words, their actions, that you are able to now express to others their living legacy in just a few words. And we've got another one, Sir Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which can change the world. Yes. So think about yourself. Think about people somewhere else in a room talking about you and saying, okay, well, what's Natalie's living legacy? And within 15 or 20 seconds, they can state it in a few words. That's the goal. And the goal is not an ego-driven goal. So that's something I want to talk about, because this is coming up a lot. It's like legacy is usually tied to ego and fortune, you know, and fame and all this stuff. So it's really not about that. It's about how can we make the best of our lives today? How can we bring our best person forward? And the ultimate goal is for somebody else in a different room, in a group, talking about you and saying, this is their living legacy. That it's so strong that you're, you know, let me go back and see what you've done here. Your truth, your values, your contribution, that has inspired others somehow, inspired yourself first and then others, was so powerful that they were able to describe it. And the reason they're able to describe it, and you're able to describe it, is because these people lived it. They modeled it. The first step is to write it for yourself. So you got to be able to write it, make it concrete, so that you can take it forward for yourself and really own it. And so that's what we're going to do with the rest of our time. I'm going to share with you the framework for making that happen. Is everybody ready to keep going? Just give me a yes if you are in the chat. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So it's not an effective talk if we don't bring some research in, right? Yes, yes, we got a we in there. I like it. From Kimberly. Good. Thank you. Okay, so here's a little bit of research to position ourselves as we go forward. So there's wonderful research out there on meaning and purpose. And of course, given this is very interesting to me, I've done a little bit of research, and I'm starting a research project that was just funded on last weekend. So I'm very excited to be able to do the research and collect the data to be able to further this idea of legacy, living legacy. This is some research that I found, and I thought it'd be nice to ground ourselves in some research by Michael Steger, who wrote this article here for the Journal of Positive Psychology, and he actually runs a center for purpose and meaning in the US, and I can't remember what city he's in exactly. But he's developed this framework that are the components of meaning. And there are 3 elements here. And we are going to focus on the purpose bubble. So the purpose is the need to do. So having goals and direction in life with some intersection of coherence, the need to be logical and consistent, which we've also talked about in terms of those legends that were consistent in their thoughts, words, and actions. And finally, the third component is significance, the need to make sense. So the degree to which a person believes his or her life has value, worth, and importance. Wonderfully, the intersection of these three elements brings meaning to your life. So we're going to focus in a story. I'm going to share with you my story from my book regarding purpose. And as we kick off, just one beautiful quote from Michael Steger: relationships are the landscape of meaning, build meaning through connection. And so the connection we have with ourselves and with others, like in that loop that I shared with you earlier, that's what we want to focus on. It's really about the relationships that we have internally and externally. So I'm going to share my story with you. Now, my story begins with the heroine that you see here. And I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's an apple right on the right side of this tree here. And her name is Brave Apple. And so she sits on her tree all day. And as you can see, the tree is up on a hill. So from her vantage point on this tree, she can see the whole orchard. And wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Yes, so there she is. And she could see the whole orchard. And day in, day out, she has seen this orchard grow through the seasons and die, you know, as the winter time comes, and then grow again. And it seemed the same. Day in, day out seemed the same, until one day she started seeing something a little different. She wasn't sure if it was always there or if it just suddenly appeared, or maybe her eyes just were able to see it now. And so here she is right there, and she can see the orchard. Now you can see it too. And as you know, the days progressed, she started seeing that one of the trees in the orchard was brighter than the others. Can you see it? Can you see that bright tree that is calling her attention? Yes. Thank you, Julie. Oh, there's a few of you that are saying yes. And so it's glowing. It's so bright. It's glowing. And she says to herself, what is going on there? I don't feel this energy on this tree that I'm on. You know, although I love my life, I think it's a great life. Somehow I'm curious. I'm curious to go see what's going on over there. So she had to really think hard about her decision. She had to go and really reflect, what should I do to go and learn more about this glowing tree? So she decides to pop free from her branch and roll down the hill all the way to the glowing tree. So when she gets there, she's like, whew, I made it. Beautiful. Is this the beginning or is this the end? In fact, it's just the beginning. So she didn't sit there now thinking, oh boy, what did I do? I don't think, you know, I regret this now. No, she got there and she thought to herself, I made it. I'm grateful. My role now is to sit and observe and understand what is going on here. So she became very present. And sometimes when we take the leap and we do something that's maybe a little bit risky, sometimes we think, oh no, what did I do? And then we start regretting, and then we start living in the past, and then we don't propel ourselves forward. But the message here is confident in your decision, grounded in who you were or who you are, able to see things, because that step she took grounded in the present, allows her to see things she hadn't seen before. And that's exactly what happens. She sees that there's a deep communication within the orchard, that all the trees somehow are connected and they share nutrients and they expel chemicals to warn each other when locusts or storms are coming, both through the air and under the roots. She's amazed. She hadn't seen this before. She also understands that there's a very intense communication happening within the tree. So when the leaves are thirsty, they call to the roots to draw in more water. Wow, she thought, that's amazing. They're so connected and they're working together. And so as she takes in all this newfound knowledge, and her observations and her experience have taken her so much exponentially far beyond where she was on her tree, she begins to glow. And in that moment, she decides to send her own signal through the orchard, and she gets a strong answer about what's next for her. So this is the quote that I have for all of you. So whether you're a student or you're in industry and you're in corporate, or you're balancing both studies and work, we are all emerging leaders. And Ken Blanchard, who's a leadership guru, global leadership guru, gives us this advice. To pursue greatness, aspiring leaders sometimes must dare to leave the familiar. Opportunities for growth and learning are all around you, so take the leap and grow. And for a system to survive, so we have systems in an orchard, but our life is a collection of systems. We need to leave behind in others the conviction and will to carry on through our words, actions, and thoughts. So, question for you in the chat. Can you describe in very short few words, what is Brave Apple's living legacy? She did leave a legacy in her orchard when she sent out her signal. How could you describe what that is? Everyone is whole. Courageous curiosity. Good, good, Julie. Thank you, Arash. Interesting. I love these answers. Anybody else? Reaching out. So she reached out to learn more, to gain her learning. Embrace risk. Yes, self-confidence. To dare. Yes, she dared to leave the familiar. Wonderful. So again, a short story. You were able to describe in a few words the living legacy. To grow with others. Thank you. She will eventually rot. Yes, she will. But her seeds will be wiser. Kimberly, you're on to the story. You can tell. So yes, of course. So her legacy lives on in her seeds. But to that point, you know, why did she pop free from the branch? Was it so that she could envision a future orchard through her seeds? I don't think so, right? She popped free from her branch for herself, right? She had that inner curiosity to really learn and grow. Let's see, coming in fast here. Thank you, Kimberly, that's true. Robert, have a good meeting, yes. Natalie, go for what she believed and bravery. Hoy, getting comfortable to learn more, absolutely. Huge uncomfort, right? To seek meaning and ambition. Wonderful, wonderful answers. So what we're doing so far is I'm getting you familiar with the words living legacy, and I've shared a couple of stories. You've had some stories of your own. You've been able to use a few words to describe. I'd like to take us into a couple of, one last question and then the final question, which is really about writing your own living legacy and using the model of growth. My dog's whining again. We're going to ignore the whining dog. She'll be fine. So if we look at the objectives, describe the importance of having a living legacy. So in the chat, let's see, in the chat, now that we've gone through these different examples and I've given you some information, what would you say is the importance of having one for yourself? In the chat. Why is this important? Why do I care so much to use this as my own living legacy? Why is it important to have one? Self-assurance, Dominic says with a question mark. Self-assurance. Sylvie, it's a guiding light. Yes, Arash, to have meaning in our life. Marzier, to be consistent. Yes. Joanna, to manage my energy and guide my way. Wonderful. Vincenzo, I need a sense of purpose. Yes, to feel alive, Susanna says. And Julie, to maximize the use of time and energy to make my best contribution. And Jose says to focus on the important things. Rabba adds. It's almost like Jose and Rabba are answering each other's sentences, which is wonderful. Such great answers. My goodness. I'm loving this. I'm getting energized by you all. Natalie adds, to give sense to a better life, to feel fulfilled, to remain, stay and focused all the time. Yes, and now, so realistically, right, it's hard to do this all the time, but really, if it's better to have it to guide us than to not have it. We've got another whining dog here. I apologize. You know, that's what happens. We've got a house full of people that the dog needs his mommy. And that's going to happen, of course, when I'm doing a webinar. All right, stay focused. That's what I have to do. Stay focused. Thank you, everybody. So the objectives. The first one was to describe the importance of living legacy. Check. The next thing we're going to do, so the time that we have, the 30 minutes we have left, we're going to focus on developing a learning plan to live your purpose. And this is the model of growth that I'm going to share with you. So we've seen some examples. How easy do you think it is for you to write your 1 year living legacy? So in the chat, you can say very easy, I'm not sure, difficult, whatever comes to your mind. So in the chat, how easy is it for you to write a 1 year living legacy? Do you think, now that you've been warmed up and you've seen some examples? Julie says challenging. Probably not as easy as I think, says Suzanne. Yes. Natarajan, I hope I'm saying that right. Well, it will be transformational all of a sudden. Yes. In writing it, right? I think that's what you're saying. In writing it, it will be transformational. Wonderful. Joanna, it will be easier if the pandemic ends. Ah, so that's why it's time to reinvent. We need to do this now. Now that we're in this state where it's a blank state almost, a blank slate in front of us, that we could write this. Not so easy to do. Easy if time permitting. Yes, we have to make time. Rabba says, not sure. Okay. Arash, writing a legacy is very easy, but to be consistent to it is very difficult. Yes, that's where the practice comes in, right? That's where the focus comes in. Dominic, a blank paper is easy to fill with many ideas. Wonderful. Marzier, not easy. So we've got some hopeful answers, and we've got some people who are optimistic, and some people who are realistic that it might not be easy, or they're not sure. Difficult, but would be easier after the first year. Got to start somewhere. Hoy, good job. And Sylvie, challenging, but definitely a great life investment. Sylvie, beautiful. That's like the perfect answer to end before we keep going. Yes, challenging, but definitely a great life investment. Agreed. Remember, I shared at the very beginning, your first thought is rarely your best thought. So the very important thing is just to give it your first step. So here's the model of growth for emerging leaders. I'm going to take you through the model, starting with the birth, which you can see. Yes, so look at your vision. Yes, it's like it definitely is a vision statement. Yes, purpose statement. We're going to look at this model. I will explain this model. Coincidentally, it is shaped like an infinity sign. Wow, what a surprise, right? So here is the model of growth, and I'm going to take you through this so that by the end of this, you can go through the exercise of planning your purpose. So we're going to start at birth right here. And there you are. So my image for you is this little sapling. So think about the start of something new for yourself. It could be what's next for you after COVID-19. What's going to be the start of something new? Lots of new ideas are being developed right now. We're in a state of innovation, right? We're transitioning business operations. We're transitioning how we educate, how we learn. Lots of things are being developed. Lots of new things are being discovered. Also, how we live in our homes, you know, how we do certain things, the schedules we keep, all of this is new. My family, we bought a badminton net, and we've been playing badminton in the backyard. We've never done that before. New. So it could be a new project, a new relationship, new, something new. So there's the birth of something new. That's the first quadrant. As we proceed with this new thing, let's say it's a new job. It's a new job or a new project. We're in this period of growth here. And what happens when we hit the intersection, an emotion hits. Could be a positive emotion, it could be a negative emotion. The important thing is the awareness. So when we started this webinar about an hour ago, I asked you for one word. That was you grounding yourself in awareness on your current state of motion. So I want you to think about that new thing, you know, in your history, in your life. When you started something new, a new job, new relationship, doesn't matter what it is, and then you proceeded along that path of growth, and then boom, something happens. What kind of emotion did you feel at that point? In the chat. So just share some of the emotions that come after something new happens. And it could be, you know, during the honeymoon period of that new thing, or, you know, the thing that stops the honeymoon period. Arash says anxious. Yes, so maybe it's a new job and you thought I could do this, and then you start doing it and then it's bigger than you thought it might be. So you get anxious. Yes. Anything else? Any other emotions that come for you? Excitement. Yes. Energy. It could be doubts. These are all very good and valid. And so again, it really doesn't matter what the emotion is. The important thing is to be grounded in awareness. And sometimes emotion is a big word. We don't know what we're feeling, but we might feel some sensations in our body that are giving us an indication. There are others here. An amazing dose of energy, Vincenzo. Good. Fear from Jose. Natalie, confusion. Yes. So again, being grounded in those emotions keeps us from being stuck. If we're not able to identify those emotions for ourselves, it's really hard to continue on our path towards maturity. If we take the time to really understand in this present moment, what is my body telling me? What are the emotions that I'm feeling? This is so important for our well-being, especially today. To take time to understand what it is we're feeling will help us be stronger on our red dot as we move towards the path. There's an exercise that I will be doing actually in a couple of weeks for a webinar with you all on fear. And, you know, as I've been delivering this activity with different groups, some people are like, oh, you know, well, I'm not fearful. I'm a very hopeful, optimistic person. But when we do the activity, all of a sudden at the end, they're like, wow, I have fears. I never thought of it. This is amazing, right? So that awareness allows us to go forward with better resolve, better grounding as we encounter our next quadrant, which is the maturity quadrant. So again, our little sapling grows, matures. In this period of our learning journey, we have a wonderful opportunity. And just like Brave Apple, you know, she got down to the tree, to the glowing tree. It wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. So this is an opportunity to observe, stay grounded, take a step and observe. What do I need to observe in this new step? Oh, look what's going on there. I hadn't seen that before. Maybe I want to explore that a little bit more and go to the second step. We might not have seen that in that second step if we hadn't taken our first step. So it's really important to be present and grounded as we learn and grow, especially if you're doing some studies, right? As you're learning and growing in your studies, you want to be present and focused on what's in front of you. And to enjoy every moment. So important to have joy in the things that sometimes we don't want to do. Third quadrant, inevitably in this predictive model of growth, it's going to come to an end. So that new thing that you started, again, could be a relationship, a project, a job, it doesn't matter. It's going to end. It might take 10 years to end. It might end in a few days. Time, this is not time limited, but there is an end to this new thing that started for us. And as we come around, we hit another intersection of emotion. In the chat, what emotion comes for you when that thing you were so excited about, that journey that you were on, has come to an end? What is the emotion that hits you at that intersection? You can share in the chat. What is that emotion that comes for you when things end? Grief. Yes, 2 griefs from Kimberly and Julie. Extreme pain, says Sylvie. Yes. Marzier, sadness. Worried. Here we are, right, in COVID-19. Lots of worried people. Sadness, worried. Good. Did anybody say regret? So regret didn't come up, but that could come for us as well, regret. Anticlimactic feeling, lack of direction. Aimless, yes, uncertainty. Yes. There could also be relief. Anybody say relief? No. So it could also be relief. You know, oh, thank God that's over. Maybe when COVID-19 finally is over, we will have that relief. Aimless, uncertainty, reflection. Great. So it's really all about reflection. Jose adds feeling of loss. Wonderful. So again, there's no good or bad around the emotion. It's really all about being aware of it. And sometimes if we're not aware of it, if we're not aware of the sensations, or we don't take the time to acknowledge that emotion, what happens, we stay stuck in that intersection. And maybe we're purposefully stuck. You know, I can remember some situations in my history where I knew I was stuck. I knew it. I was naming the emotion and I needed to be stuck. You know, sometimes it's purposeful, it's strategic. I need to stay here for a bit because I need to come to terms with this loss. And a lot of us are doing this right now. You know, sometimes we feel stuck. That's okay. As long as you know, as long as you're aware of it. I'm taking this decision to be stuck for a little bit. Great. If we're not aware, we might stay stuck and we don't know why things aren't progressing for us. So that awareness in the emotion is very important. Now, we've named our emotion, so good job, everybody, and we're able to go forward. In this next quadrant, this final quadrant, is really about renewal. So it's an opportunity after the end to take time to reflect what is our next step. It's a very important quadrant because sometimes we don't give ourselves the time to just be still. with our experience, with our life experience that has brought us to this very moment. So the entire experience is a moment of celebration because it brought us here. What's coming for us is a rebirth, something new. And so this period of reflection and restoration is important. When we see a forest fire, right, when it's finally subsided, under the earth, there is still life. We can't see it with our eyes. We think, oh, look, it's devastation. Everything's burnt down. But at the very bottom of the soil, deep in the ground, there is life. There will be regrowth. It just needs rest. It needs time to be able to regrow stronger than before. So that's our hopeful message for this period of ours. This is the last piece, which I call legacy, living legacy. So my invitation to you is to reverse engineer this model. So we're going to reverse engineer it. I've taken you through it in a very linear way. We're going to start backwards. We're going to start with the living legacy. Figure that out. Write your living legacy statement. Maybe you're going to write some ideas, right? I forget who said blank piece of paper brings ideas. You're going to write some ideas, let it simmer. My living legacy that I wrote last March, that wasn't my first attempt. I probably wrote 5 or 6 before that, before I landed on the one that I felt good about. So I wrote it, and I shared it. Sharing it is really important because when you share it, it kind of takes on another life. And you might share things that you hadn't initially thought about or written down that are clues that are very important that you might want to add. Once you've written it, now you can go back to the journey. Okay, in order for me to achieve this living legacy within 1 year, what is the journey I need to embark on? What are the things I need to observe? What are the things I need to learn? Who are the people I need to connect with? And you can make a plan for yourself aligned to that living legacy. What is my learning journey going to be to help fulfill my living legacy? And then along the way, I will have emotions that will come up for me. Now, of course, the model shows us 2 intersections, but we're living those emotions throughout the entire infinity, right? The entire cycle. We are living and feeling these emotions. So as part of this strategic plan for your life, you want to say, okay, at the various intersections, I might feel this way. This emotion may come up for me. So if it's sadness, I might say, okay, what am I going to do when that happens? I'm going to do these actions, and I'm going to call on these people to support me. And it's really important to identify who are in your circles of support, your network. Who can I call on? And I had one student, we do this at the beginning of the semester, and we figure out what your learning legacy is going to be at the end of the semester. And when she identified her emotion for herself, she said, I'm going to feel very overwhelmed, during this class, because I know there's going to be new stuff that I'm going to learn. And of course, I've got other things going on. I've got work, I've got family, I've got other classes, so I might feel overwhelmed. That was her emotion. And then she said, okay, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to put on my running shoes and go for a run. So she was a runner. So she already planned for herself. I'm going to go for a run. And then I'm going to call my sister because she's my closest ally, and I'd be able to tell her how I'm feeling with being overwhelmed. And just planning for it helped to reduce that feeling of overwhelm. Of course, she still felt overwhelmed and she was ready when it happened, but it really helps us to go through our journey on our red dot, stronger, grounded, and more secure. So that's the model of growth for emerging leaders. And I'm going to show you the plan. And I'm going to take the rest of the time that we have maybe a little bit less than 10 minutes or so, to show you the worksheet, which I'm happy to share with you. And if we've got some people on the line who are feeling super empowered, super excited, and full of energy in life, maybe you can write your living legacy, your first draft, right here in this webinar. So here's what I just took you through, right? So this is the worksheet. The legacy. What is your 1 year living legacy? You write your statement down. Then you think about the journey. What is the learning journey that I need to embark on to achieve that legacy? What do I need to observe, learn, be aware of, practice? And then finally, what emotions may come up for me and how will I work with them? Not against them, but with them. Emotions are so important to help us along the journey. So I'm going to wait to see, did anybody write anything down? Did anybody write a statement for themselves that they want to test out with everybody else on the line? What might be your 1 year living legacy for May 1st, 2021? It's time to reinvent. Also, if you have questions, now's the time to ask them. You might have some questions about the model or about some of these questions or the strategy itself. And I'm just going to check the Q&A as well. So if you want to put a question in the Q&A or in the chat, that's fine as well. So here's what I'm visualizing you all doing. Writing things down, having some ideas. We'll give everybody a few more moments to think through what might be your living legacy for 2021. Marzier, to show the importance of engineering in medicine. Wonderful, wonderful. So you want to, so that's good. It's a good first attempt. Try to make it measurable. So what are you going to show exactly? What are you going to show exactly? To whom? So good, good, good. I love it, Marzier. That was really quick. Beautiful. Anybody else? So I do have a template that I provide that makes it SMART. If you've heard of SMART goals, you want it to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. So we've got the time-based 1 year. So think about SMART. Doesn't have to be on your first attempt though. You can certainly just jot down some ideas and then grow it from there. And we have a question in the Q&A. Hang on just 1 second. Practice in journey. Can you elaborate? Yes. So based on your living legacy, there might, so the question is, I'm just going to rephrase, for learning journey, I have here that you would need to observe, learn, be aware of, practice. So I think that's what the question is. Can I elaborate on the word practice? What does that mean? So there, depending on your living legacy, you might need to do some experiments. You need to practice some things. So Marzi, if I use yours, you know, to show the importance of engineering in medicine, you might need to practice expressing that importance to others. So it's not just about observing and being on our own, right? It's really about interacting with others and practicing and experimenting. Think about it as a sandbox and having fun and bringing joy in these experiments. So I hope that answers your question. And you could just let me know in the Q&A if I've answered your question. We have Fatima, who has shared a living legacy to empower 50 undergraduate business students to extend their learning beyond the classroom. You're making my heart shine. Thank you. Thank you to both Marzier and Fatima for sharing their living legacy to empower 50 undergraduate business students to extend their learning beyond the classroom. So good, so good. Anybody else? Anybody else? Just checking the time. We're doing great on time. Anybody else want to share? Now, so your plan would have details for each one of these 3 areas. And remember, you know, we didn't do it in our short 90-minute webinar, But it all has to be grounded in who you are. So it actually starts with who you are on your red dot that will allow you to create this plan for living your purpose on purpose, living your purpose on purpose. Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else still writing that want to share? This is a great opportunity for you to share your living legacy with the rest of the people on the webinar. Natalie says, to share and mentor my professional knowledge with others. Very good, to share and mentor my professional knowledge with others. So again, what does that look like? How will you know in 1 year that you have succeeded? Remember, SMART. So you might want to add a few things to that, Natalie, but wonderful, wonderful start. Jose says, to build a Francophone college in the Northwest Territories based on strong partnerships that respects our diversity and hopes for our people. Wow, that is so powerful, to build a Francophone college in the Northwest Territories based on strong partnerships that respects our diversity and hopes for the future. Beautiful. Vincenzo has a 1-year living legacy. Improve my health, get a job. Oh, you've got the whole thing. Journey. Keep a journal and execute much more rather than be stuck in concepts. Experiment. It's sandbox. Life is a grand old experiment. Don't keep yourself back. Hold yourself back. And for awareness, you wrote, getting through the sadness, through the failures, and learning to become successful. Sharing the success by helping others will make me feel great. Wonderful mindset, Vincenzo. That's wonderful, wonderful. Well done. It's really amazing. Thank you for sharing with us, for being able to do it so quickly, and to have such impact for all of us on the line to see you do this in real time. And for those of you that are unsure, right, you've got some people who are modeling the assignment. And I have another question in the Q&A. I don't see it. There does not seem to be any open questions. So if I'm missing it, maybe you can share it with me. Oh, I already answered it. Okay, good. Does anybody have any other questions? Now's the time. Will you send the worksheet, or is this slide the worksheet? The slide is the worksheet. Yes. So if you want to take a screen capture, you can certainly do that right now. This is in fact the worksheet. Wonderful. Oh yes, we have a final poll. Before I go to the final poll, so Carola says everyone will receive the deck as part of the recording. Yay, great, wonderful. So this is the end. At the end of this 90 minutes, this was my promise to you. These were my objectives. Describe the importance of having a living legacy. So we took the majority of our time today to do the first objective. And the second objective is to develop a learning plan to live your purpose, which some of you did beautifully. And even if you didn't share, I want to believe that you're at least thinking about it, thinking about how you're going to do this. Maybe you took lots of notes. That's wonderful. I find, you know, when I'm learning on these webinars, and I'm also learning remotely, I find that when I'm given time to do it in the moment, it's so rich because I'm here, my brain's in it, and I get so much more done. So that's why I gave you a little bit of time, not a lot, but a little bit of time to at least take some notes. Wonderful. So I have one more poll. So with the Q&A we did. So let's see if I can bring up the last poll. I have lots of windows open here. Hang on. So poll number 2, here we go. So in the, on your screen, you should be able to see the last poll. And you can document your answers, and then I will share the results with you. And as you're answering, I do have another slide after this that has my contact information. So if you do have any questions, or if you want to share your living legacy with me, I'd love to read it. You can certainly email me. And the answers are coming in. Thank you, Julie and Michelangelo. Thank you so much. 84% have voted. Okay, I think that might be the end of it. Let's show the answers. So with 59%, we are at, I will look into bringing my living legacy to light. Wonderful. Followed by 33% who are ready to go and write and share their living legacy. And we've got 8% that are kind of not sure, maybe this isn't right for them. That's fine. This isn't for everybody. But I'm glad to see that the majority of you have taken something away from this. And so I thank you very much for your active participation and your hard work during this session. I'm going to hand it back to Carola and Ina.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I was thinking about what my one-year legacy would be, and I think with great team members like you and Ina and many of our students and colleagues who were in the webinar as well, I think the legacy is a pretty optimistic one, even if we don't know exactly what it looks like. And so I really thank you for walking us through all of this. And we might want to take away the polls so that people can see your slide.
Oh, did I not do that?
Oh, it's gone. It's gone. Not to worry.
It's gone. Okay.
So I just want to say again, thank you to all of you who participated today. I hope you get something out of this. You'll have a chance to revisit this very rich discussion and set of ideas. It gives us something to think about late at night when we can't sleep or early in the morning before we start our days. And please stay tuned for other webinars. We will be adding to the schedule. You can go to our website, and wish you all well, and that we get through these uncertain times renewed, refreshed, reinvented, and think of the School of Continuing Studies also as a partner on that journey. So we look forward to welcoming many of you, hopefully in person at some point in time. Thank you very much. Ina?
Well, thank you very much, Sonia, for a very inspirational presentation today. And thank you very much to Dean Weil for moderating and introducing and being with us today. It was really a great way to end the week. So I hope to see many of you back next week. We have another webinar with Sonia on May 12th. And then the following week on the May 20, we also have a leadership talk. So thank you very much, everyone. It was great to have you.